So on the internet, it looks like kind of searching the opposition to Bleeding Heart Libertarianism, it seems like the most often talked about thing that they disagree with is that there was a quote by, I think, Zelensky about, if libertarianism didn't help the poor, then they would not support it. Then y'all would not support it. And he says that's bad because it's like you're alienating the whole sect of libertarians that dedicate their lives just to the free market principles. What would be your response to that?
Yeah, I mean, there's also the other way, which is even larger, which is if socialists really make it up when including the profit, right? So I mean that's another way to make the same point that you put into Zelensky. And again, I think that's just consequentialism. That's just people saying that what we care about, the reason we care about the principles and rights is because we think they produce good consequences. If these markets turned out to really impoverish them, right? Okay? But I wouldn't be a direct economist. I don't want to impoverish. I want to make people better off. Right? So I think natural rights libertarians have kind of two reactions to that. We're certainly not saying they're stupid. It's not like saying they're wrong about sort of how philosophical libertarianism. I'm suggesting they're wrong about strategically how. That's the natural rights arguments I'm already to make. Okay? But we're not saying stupid. And I think the dialogue has maybe two groups is healthy. But the other part is, let me put it the other way. The natural rights types of those arguments, I think, very often believe that bleeding heart libertarians are necessarily more statist, right, than no libertarians. It's just not true. That the law, I think, put over the big account. I think there's at least okay? And there's people who look at the state. So it's not about issues around the opponents of the trade. So that's number one. And I think the other thing is that someone like me, I would particularly agree with most of the top positions that say natural practice is a micro on natural rights grounds. I just don't think you can justify them. So it's not a difference about these policy positions, or it's not about the one I think the most is it's about sucking up practice. No, it's not sucking up. It's about engaging conversation. I don't have my real belief state should be as big if at all, okay, to engage that conversation. So I think I think it sometimes have not understood what we want them to.
Is that a question?
I guess you talked about gay marriage. What are your thoughts on that, and how libertarians should approach that with, dialoguing with conservatives and liberals?
Okay. It seems like you got about 10 minutes, then it's finished.
Yeah, sounds about like that.
So same-sex marriage. I mean, I argue that libertarians ought to support legalizing same-sex marriage. Is it a first best option? No. I mean, the ideal world could figure out a way to get government out of the marriage business altogether, but for a whole bunch of reasons, I don't think that's a realistic proposition anytime in the future. I think one of the important issues for me that's come out of this, for me to stress to other libertarians, and I think it's also part of how we engage that issue with leftists, and maybe conservatives too, is to say it's about equality before the law, right? And as that notion, the idea that government should treat, whatever government does, it should treat all citizens equally, is just as much a part of the classical liberal libertarian tradition as is the idea of limiting the kinds of things government should do. I mean, arguments of the old guys, the 19th century classical liberals like John Stuart Mill was, we don't need a lot of government, but whatever government does, it has to treat everybody equally. Okay? And so certainly we have to recognize that, and this does too. So I think that's part of the argument. Okay, is it the ideal? Maybe not, but it's the best we're going to do realistically. So I think, for me, this is an easy issue to engage the left, right? And frankly, if you make the sort of privatized marriage argument or you get the state-owned marriage argument, you sometimes get more sympathetic hearing from the really radical left, right? There's a lot of radical feminists who love kind of get rid of the whole institution of marriage. They think it would, in terms of contracts that we're talking about. How do you engage conservatives on this? I think that's more difficult, and I frankly think it depends. If they're religious conservatives, it's very difficult because they've got a very deep-seated, gut reaction, moral repugnance, right, at the idea. I think, with non-religious, it's a little easier to talk about the ways in which legalizing same-sex marriage might serve conservative ends, right? If you think marriage is so good for heterosexuals, why not? True. And we have all kinds of data to show how good marriage is. Married people live longer. They tend to have higher incomes, so they have sex lives, right? And everything. So you can use those kind of arguments to say marriage is a good thing, and I believe it is. It's just exactly how well that works. So I think that's one kind of argument that can be useful with conservatives. And since, by the way, people your age, there was support for same-sex marriage like 2-1, right? Again, maybe not in your part of the country, it's not. Right? 2-1. So it's not as hard an argument I've seen views on this change in the years I've been teaching on issues. So I think that's one way to do it. And I think, kind of basic fairness issues and appealing to conservatives, the good things they say about marriage, right? If you think marriage is great, why not them too?
Okay, well, here's it's not necessarily Bleeding Heart Libertarianism, but as, one of the most prominent Austrian economists, what do you think about Bitcoin?
Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Huh.
You what?
And I hate this question. I don't hate this question. I hate this question. And for one thing, I honestly don't know that much about it, okay?
Okay.
And I don't know more details. And when I say people who are often monetary theorist types who I trust are very skeptical. So that leads me to be skeptical that can ever be much more than a kind of fad. And frankly, the kind of, if you've been following the last week, right, the swings we've seen the last week, this is not the kind of feature one normally wants to have with something to replace the dollar, right? If it's something, this kind of variation, the whole point, the whole idea of money, of having money, is that you want something that's sound enough. I don't always like the word stable, but sound enough that prices from day to day, week to week, and month to month move in predictable, understandable kinds of ways and move through the real factors of the economy. But when you've got the market for the money itself constantly reevaluating, so imagine everything priced in Bitcoin, right? And now other prices are moving around all the time because it's so unstable. Now maybe it's unstable because it's young and new. Okay, I can't. There's no way to conclusively argue against that. But I just don't see it. Okay, and I know enough about the history of money and how. It's kind of like this. A lot of things Google Plus. Everyone says, "Oh man, Google Plus is awesome. It's going to replace Facebook." That network exponentiality really powerful. It's very, very costly to switch from Facebook to Google Plus, right? I mean, you can try to run a parallel, but until you get the critical mass, right? And I just don't see Google Plus. It's a great fun thing for libertarian types to talk about. By the way, if you know the history of PayPal, right? The guys who invented PayPal were trying to do more or less what Bitcoin's doing, but not with the sophisticated technology. They were trying to come up with an alternative payment system that people could use instead of the dollar. But they couldn't do it, right? They couldn't win. So what they did with PayPal is just develop a system that sort of sits on top of the dollar. It's ultimately settled in dollars, but is just a more convenient kind of form of fight or whatever. So I think it's really, really difficult to replace the dollar. I would go to Las Vegas and play blackjack with my eyes closed and to buy, because there's just you're just gambling blindly.
Question.
Yeah.
Barack Obama, great president or greatest president?
Great or greatest?
He's kidding.
I heard about this. There was a couple other problems. He's not the first 10 years. But boy, well, if you put it this, I looked at something serious. At the very end of the Bush administration, especially when he targeted bailouts and all that stuff, I didn't think it was possible to be worse president than W. Bush.
Yeah.
I think that's otherwise.
Well, in the history of the United States, who would be the worst president, do you think? Yeah.
I think you could, over the whole history, it's going to be a 20th century person. And I think for me, there's probably 3 nominees. Wilson Goodman.
Which one?
Woodrow Wilson.
Oh, Woodrow Wilson, sorry.
Yeah, Wilson Goodman was it. I mean, you could put Truman up there for dropping the bottom, I suppose. Carter was terrible, but there were some good things that happened with Carter, too, right? Were Bush and Obama as bad as those other 3 guys? I'm not sure they were, to be honest with you. But Wilson, terrible. He's the most underappreciated bad guy in the libertarians. Ever since a lot of bad things happened under Wilson that set the stage for the bad things that happened under Hoover and Roosevelt. And certainly with Hoover and Roosevelt, you get the setting precedent of a lot of the state of the economy that just continues to. All of that happened since the Great Depression. Not all, many of them are due to the Depression if you have to thank Hoover and Roosevelt.
Anybody? What, in your opinion, is the role of government?
The goal of
The role of government?
government?
Yeah.
Okay. It depends what's committed to the customer, right? Here's the way, people ask me, here's what I say, okay? I'm not going to ask the following thing. I have found a compelling argument yet for anything that needs to be. But I think there's some areas in which I'm not prescriptive that other parts of civil society can solve that satisfaction. Okay? So, Congress might use it not. I mean, I think some those who want to make an argument for government, but you have to show people that should be free. I don't know why it won't work. But there's cases where it's convenient. So yeah, I mean, my inclination is anarchist, but am I totally convinced that that's right? No. But burden proof lies on.
Okay.
So when would a libertarian or Bleeding Heart Libertarian support a military intervention?
Well, I'm going to assume you're using the word intervention intentionally, right, as opposed to defense. Right?
Yeah.
So, okay. I think it's the bar's pretty high because one of the things we know is that when you open up the Pandora's box of war, you can lose a lot of other freedoms elsewhere. Okay, so if you're going to intervene somewhere, okay, you have to be damn sure it's really important. And this is not an area I'm an expert on. I suppose I can imagine in a world of states a situation where another country was doing something where we were very, very convinced that they take a hypothetical. Suppose the North Koreans had 5,000 missiles. We knew they had nuclear capability. We knew they were aimed at us. We knew they had the range to attack us. Okay? And we knew there was a crazy guy in charge. Right? In that kind of scenario, it's like a guy running at you with a gun. You're acting, I would just say then you're acting in self-defense. But boy, the burden has to be on. And it has to be a threat to you. It can't just be a threat to other people or innocent other parties in the area. It has to be the U.S. It has to be a threat to U.S. citizens. As long as we have a state, the state still has a responsibility, even if it doesn't do it very well, to try to protect us in the ways it's chosen to monopolize force. So, is the answer none? No. But boy, again, pretty exceptional circumstances.
I guess going off of that, I don't know. I guess what should we do to try and bring back the left into their anti-war sentiment? Because it seems Obama's
Elected Republican.
yeah.
Keep embarrassing them.
Yeah.
I think that's what you have to do. Keep posting Dan Bimbo articles on Facebook and tag your lefty friends. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it's because they have to be embarrassed. They have to be embarrassed. I mean, have to in the sense not that we have to embarrass them, but they must be. They must be feeling embarrassed. And I think you just guilt and shame them into it, right? And keep calling attention to the obvious politics fear that, you know, when it's their guy in power, everything's okay. And some of them basically said that, which I find absolutely wrong, right? And that's a complete abandonment of any kind of left. So, you know, yeah, just embarrassing. It's anti-war law. You know, do one up of them. Anything else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
This isn't really economics related. It might be, but do you think North Korea is actually going to nuke us?
Now, as far as I can tell, no one thinks they have missiles with the range to do it. They can't get any farther. I think the word shot, they can shoot a missile farther than the bomb. But here's the other. If you really believe that socialism doesn't work, did you hear the story they couldn't launch it supposedly because there was computer problems? You know, I mean, the least surprising thing that happened to me is they shoot a missile, it goes straight up and comes right back down. So, I mean, this happened in the first Gulf War. The Iraqis were using Russian-made stuff, right? And it just didn't work for them. And so I'm just, this is a society that it's like a kid can't even tie its shoes. I'm not too concerned about this. I'd be more concerned about treating in South Korea, where, it's hard to miss that. All right, but certainly getting as far as the U.S. and even, I'm headed to Hawaii on Saturday for a conference, so, I have reason, if anyone does, to be more concerned than you sit in Texas, but I'm not really. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, what about people who live in, you said in Texas, okay, never mind.
Who live where?
Because you were saying, like, you have the most reason, or you have, like, the most concern, like, related to us in Texas, and I was like, what about people in Hawaii? But then you said in Texas. So.
Yeah, no, just not, yeah. I don't think, yeah. I've not any credible report to suggest that they can get any farther than Guam. And so they're saber powered. They're making noise, trying to be, act up.
In your opinion, I've heard different leading libertarians say, Thomas Jefferson or Calvin Coolidge or Harding or the best presidents, or even Harrison because he was only in office for 30 days. Who, in your opinion, was the best president in our history, given the necessary evil of our government right now?
I'm not a real expert in this stuff. I mean, I think there's a pretty good case for Coolidge, although there were problems there. I think it gets hard when you go back to the 19th century because those guys, in some cases, tolerating slavery, in other cases, tolerating Jim Crow, and treating women. It's kind of hard to do that. But in our own sense, certainly you can make the argument for Coolidge as being one best. And frankly, it kills me to say that Clinton, too. I mean, if you look at actual statistics on where's the best? The good guy.
I was just going to ask you what you think of Ted Cruz.
I honestly don't know about that. I haven't followed that closely. From what I've seen, he seems like, how do I want to put this? He seems ran polished enough to be interesting. Okay? Again, I just don't know all his positions in various things, but, the kind of media splashes he made, I think have been good things. Okay? Some of them. So, yeah, I mean, it's a kind of, my gut reaction is the same way I feel about Ron Paul and Rand Paul, which is, yeah, sometimes they get right, but I'm not going in both feet.
I remember my question now. It was sort of on... sorry.
It could be one of those candidates that then pulls in some libertarians and some conservatives in a productive way.
My question, it seems, just following the basic Facebook arguments on, between libertarians, feminism is sort of a big issue, and I saw one of your posts, it seemed like it was targeting Austin Peterson. I don't know if it was or not, but he's been... Do what?
It was.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's been pretty annoying. What's your view on this whole thing? Just for those who haven't been following it.
Yeah. Well, first, Austin's a good friend of mine. And,
Okay.
Austin gave me a break and got me on Freedom Walks and made me a TV star, so I can't be too mean to Austin. But I can spank him when he's behaving like a bad boy. My take is it's incredibly helpful, right? That which is, we're trying to create a dialogue. And damn it, these are issues that libertarians have spoken about and been, historically have talked about all sorts of things. But I think that there's some libertarians who, when push comes to shove, are at least as much anti-left as they are anti-state or, God forbid, pro-liberty, right? And so when you start to talk these kinds of issues, their anti-left reflexes take over, and they go over the top. Austin likes to go over it too. For that going on, I do think he means it, but he also likes to stir up trouble.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah. So, I gave him a whack, but that was a friendly, fatherly, unclely whack. I don't know how to whack. I think, people got to just take a deep breath and repeat that these gender issues have been part of us for over 100, 200 years. Go back and be part of them now. Again, I don't want to take a shot at us. There's certainly not libertarian males for whom this is some kind of threat to who they think they are, and they got to get a little defensive.
I have to go.
I like that way too, so.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. If you have any closing remarks or whatever, then we're pretty much.
Well, keep up with your class and come on out and I'll see you next February and say hi.
Awesome. Yep. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah. Thanks. Bye.